Hey everybody, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show. My name is Tom Marks, Associate Editor here at PC Gamer, and your host, as always. Joining me today, it's been a while, Mr. Evan Lottie, Editor-in-Chief. How you doing, Evan?
Hey, I'm good. We got some new exciting games up my alley to talk about, up Chris's alley as well. So
Shooty games.
Glad to be back to talk about gun games. Yes.
Well, we're glad to have you here, man. It's been too long, at least since I've been sitting with you on the show. I think
Agreed.
James pulled you on, right? But maybe.
Who knows? I have no memory of the past 3 months.
It's been a busy time. But we're also joined by Chris Livingston via Skype. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I do have to say having some allergies, and the reason I'm having allergies is because I refuse to accept that I have my third head cold this year. So I'm just going to pretend it's not a cold, it's just some allergies. But if my camera goes off and my mic gets muted, I'm just blowing my nose and don't want to subject anyone to looking at or hearing that. So
Okay.
So don't panic if I disappear for a few seconds now and then. Otherwise, I'm great.
I mean, I think we should just... I think you can just step off camera and put Hank, your dog, just up and have him be your stand-in.
Well, it's a possibility. He'll be up here at some point, I think.
Well, we got a good show for you today. We're going to be touching on... there's been actually a slew of news today, so we're going to touch on that or recently. We'll, of course, be talking about what we've been playing recently, although for Chris and Evan, that's a little bit of, or a lot of it, potentially, of what our main topic for the show is today, which is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, a brand new Battle Royale game made by the alleged creator of the Battle Royale games. I say alleged because it's not like it's like he invented the idea, but
Sure.
he made the first mod, right, for Arma 2?
Yes, correct. And 3, and he consulted heavily on H1Z1 King of the Kill.
Yeah, so a man who's long and storied behind that, making his own game. So we're going to be talking about that, jumping in there. And then, of course, we will take your questions from Twitch chat at the end about whatever you want to talk about. But let's jump right into some news, starting with some smaller stuff. Just about a half hour ago before this show, the Star Wars Twitter tweeted out that Star Wars Battlefront 2 is officially coming this year, and that we will be getting a first look at gameplay or whatever of it on April 15th, which is not too far away. Kind of a tidbit of news. We sort of assumed it was coming this year. Like, it's not like any of this was really super unexpected.
Yeah. So again, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is going to have a campaign. The last one didn't have a campaign. We're hoping for some significant changes. We actually published an article yesterday what we want from Battlefront 2, so great timing. Like me, in the shadow of Battlefield 1, Battlefront just does not hold up in terms of the gun complexity, and obviously you're a little bit limited in terms of what blasters can do. Like, you have blaster bullet drop, that doesn't really make sense. They give you less flexibility as a projectile in terms of weapon design, but I still think there's lots of room for them to express and just get more content in the game. They weren't as aggressive as they could have been, considering it's a freaking Star Wars game.
Yeah.
So, high hopes. I mean, hopefully the campaign's a lot of fun too. I think this is going to be some of the first story stuff we see out of EA with Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm interested too, just to see how the sequel does, because there was so much expectation put on the first remake, right? The reboot of it, and there was a lot of comparing it to the original, and now they kind of have the freedom to just do what they want to do rather than what they were bound by expectation in certain regards. So I'm interested to see what that allows them to do. Also, some news today was Heroes of the Storm is getting a Heroes 2.0 update at the end of April that will completely revamp player progression, completely revamp items and loot, adds a ton of new cosmetics, and most notably for me, adds loot chests that will allow you to get the cosmetics for free for the first time in the game's history, which is significant in a free-to-play game that otherwise had this content pretty much only gated behind money, and now you can just kind of play the game and get free stuff like Overwatch.
Yeah, Blizzard's aggression with this game, making Heroes of the Storm a bigger success than it is. It's hard for us to exactly say how popular the game is, how many players it has, and whether it's profitable. And all success is a lot of different definitions in gaming, of course. But they just continue to push the heck out of this game and reconfigure it as necessary to make it more popular among MOBAs. So good for them.
Cosmetics did a hell of a lot for CS:GO. They could do a hell of a lot for this game.
Well,
Although
it seems like they're learning a lot from Overwatch, too, in terms of
Yeah.
introducing kind of a new Overwatch-inspired loot system.
yeah, there is not just with like Lucio and the characters coming in. Like there's a lot of Overwatch being put into Heroes of the Storm, and similarly, they've just been borrowing from all their games, kind of picking and choosing, like putting StarCraft's ranked system in other games, and then taking the loot system and putting it here, and then taking other stuff, and they've been sharing, cross-pollinating recently.
I think that's really important and clever for them. It sort of reinforces what a Blizzard game is, despite them being very different. It's part of the reason for Valve's success over the past decade or so. The cross-pollination, as you said, between TF2 and Dota and Counter-Strike, it's very strong.
And then TF2 in every other game, it seems
Oh, yeah.
on Steam.
Yeah.
But another piece of news that actually got announced Monday was Destiny 2 has officially been announced, which a lot of people, maybe as editor-in-chief, you can explain this a little bit, but Destiny 2 has not been officially announced for PC yet, even when all the rumors went through. Like, it hasn't been confirmed for PC, but there have been lots of rumors for a very long time that it's coming to PC. Tim Clark, our global editor-in-chief, said he would straight up quit. Like, he bet the farm on it coming to PC.
Yeah.
So he's confident in that regard.
I'm confident, too. I'm very confident it'll come to PC. I mean, if you follow gaming news as intensely as we do, like, you sort of start to pick up on the fact that, like, there is a leaky ship within Activision, and there's a leaky ship within Ubisoft, especially in terms of Assassin's Creed. Like, everything Assassin's Creed over the past 3 years has basically been leaked. Mm-hmm. Call of Duty as well is kind of another, and again, that's Activision. So if you believe that, and Kotaku's been a source of a lot of these leaks, hats off to them for pulling that stuff off. So if you continue to believe their sources, which have been proven correct again and again and again over the course of several years, we can believe that it's coming to PC. So,
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what changes they're going to have to make. I only played the original on like a PS4 like a little bit, like barely at all. But I know like aim assist is a stat in a lot of guns, and I can't imagine if they're going to bring it to PC, they either can't have cross-platform play, right, or that's going to have to be an interesting rework within that game.
Tim told me yesterday that the Destiny servers run at 10 hertz tick rate, which is just insanely low. I couldn't believe that.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. So he published an article yesterday, like exactly what you're saying, Tom, of like what does Destiny need to do in order to work well on PC in order to sort of suit the needs of PC gamers. So hopefully it pulls that off.
Yeah, it's going to require a controller to play on PC. That's what they'll do to compensate.
No, thank you.
That would be like suicide. If they brought it to PC and then required a controller, it's like people would riot. Not that people aren't going to riot.
And dedicated servers, too, was on his list of things because on PlayStation it's all
Peer-to-peer.
player-to-player, correct?
Yeah. Not good. Can't do that. Mass Effect multiplayer did that, and it is not a good experience, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Mass Effect Andromeda's?
Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer is peer-to-peer.
Wow.
Yes.
That's rough.
Yes, it is. Someone drops out in your match, and it takes like a minute or two for it to migrate, and then like in that time other people leave. It's so messy.
Ubisoft, For Honor is peer-to-peer as well, I believe.
Really?
And they actually, when I was playing that, it did a pretty good job of when someone drops, it's not too slow to migrate the host, but also people are using that to lag cheat. They have a little lag bot on their server, and they just lag the server, and they walk up behind someone, and since they're the host, they can walk through the lag.
Yeah, that doesn't seem ideal. I haven't played For Honor, but I imagine in a game that's like very sensitive to collision and counters and blocking and stuff like. I mean, it's a fighting game. Latency matters a whole lot in a fighting game.
Mm-hmm. And the last little bit of news I wanted to touch on was actually news that was a rumor 2 weeks ago. So I was really excited to hear this on Saturday. So it was a little bit farther away, or it's been out for a little bit, but. StarCraft Remastered was confirmed. So 2 weeks ago, we were talking on the show about, I don't know if it'll actually get confirmed. That seems kind of unlikely. Maybe it'll just be a custom game within StarCraft 2 or something like that. But StarCraft Remastered has 100% been confirmed. It's coming. I think they said it like in this summer. Where is it? Yeah, set for this summer. And on top of that, it's not only that it's been confirmed, but StarCraft 1 and its Brood War expansion are going completely free. Anyone can download them once this update hits. And then you can pay to upgrade your game to the remastered version, which has like HD graphics and widescreen support and stuff like that. But the two versions are completely cross-compatible. Yeah. So if you're playing on the remastered version, you can still play against people playing on the free version, which is, it's just all really interesting. It's like a really, there are a lot of ways that Blizzard could have done a StarCraft remaster wrong or badly, or making it a level within an event in Diablo, like that. But
right.
But they seem to really have gone all out with this, and they've done a really good job. And I can actually, I'll try to pull up a screenshot of this right now. It's not like the graphics are insanely improved. It's not like they remade all of the sprites and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just higher textures and higher resolution.
Resolution, exactly. Yeah, so on the left, obviously, we have the remastered version. On the right, we have original Brood War or StarCraft. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, hopefully what this will mean is like a reinvigorated StarCraft scene, right? I mean,
yeah.
That's absolutely the hope. I mean, we still think of StarCraft as one of the best RTSs of all time. Certainly the best competitive RTS if you're excluding MOBAs. So yeah, it's a game that could use some more attention in those regards. It remains great, but a lot of people have migrated to other games.
I mean, Korea's still stuck on Brood War. Like,
right.
they almost abandoned StarCraft 2 competitively, and they're really on Brood War still. So this should be a pretty big deal in that scene. And just in general, it's going to be cool to like, I'm excited to go back and play like the StarCraft 1 and Brood War campaigns for free. Like, they're just making those games accessible. Blizzard said something along the lines of like, they're starting to see their classic games, or treating their classic games as a service, right? Treating their old games as a service, which is what they do with their current games. But I like that they are paying some heed to those things. It's interesting. I wish they had done this with Diablo 1 instead of just doing a community event. Not that community, or not that in-game event wasn't like cool. But yeah, that's kind of all the news we have for today. I think this stuff is interesting. Is there anything like you guys wanted to touch that I didn't touch on? It's been a busy week, so there's been a lot of stuff going on since we last spoke. But let's move on, I guess, to what we've been playing recently. I think I know mostly what you guys are going to say. But are there any games outside of Battlegrounds? Because we're going to touch on Battlegrounds longer. Are there any games outside of Battlegrounds that you guys have been playing or want to talk about?
Yeah, I've been playing Mass Effect, of course.
Right.
I've put it down for Battlegrounds. But yeah, I put some time in there. I put 15 some hours into Mass Effect, and without retreading some of your guys' conversations from last week or the stuff we've been writing on the site too much, I kind of just don't feel much, and that's not like a heavy criticism. I have a very low tolerance for I guess sort of the generic open world garbage, Okay, that sounds like criticism, but like the type of game that like I'm just gonna fill it with. I'm gonna give the player lots of stuff to do. There's going to be a quest here and a quest there, and everywhere they go, there's going to be a little bit of a quest, like a FedEx-type courier mission. And I just have no interest in running those kind of things and stumbling into NPCs who want me to run errands for them. I don't play MMOs, and I certainly do not want to play single-player MMOs where the social context is removed. And that's been a lot of my experience so far. Now, I don't have the kind of issues with the animation system that a lot of people have voiced. I think it's fine. Like, there are moments certainly when like my character does something weird and I regret that I created the character this way, or their mouth looks funny. It sort of takes me out of the moment. But like, I don't know, that happens in plenty of different games, and I have to I accept and acknowledge that like the system could be better, but it's also, they put hundreds of hours of dialogue into the game. It's massive. So. But yeah, ultimately, like, I'm just I'm just not. I haven't felt surprised. I haven't felt inspired. I was so amped up about this notion of exploration. I'm a big, space exploration guy in real life, and I like the idea of Mass Effect abandoning the notion that like you're a soldier and you're a serious guy who just kills people or girl, and actually you're a pioneer in this game. Like wow, like what an optimistic take on sci-fi. Like that's very Star Trek, not Star Wars. Which is more the direction I lean, but. That stuff is like really undercooked so far. You're the leader of this pioneering group, and I don't know, like you don't really have to make big fundamental decisions. Everything feels kind of like set up for you already, and I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's fully exploring and diving deep on that theme for me, which is a big shame. So hopefully I'll put some more time into it, but right now I'm just not feeling compelled.
So it's funny that Tyler, was kind of a little bit of a BioWare apologist last week, and James was the white-hot fiery passion of Tim Clark incarnate, essentially. And you're kind of going, I think it's interesting that you're going down the middle road of, like, it didn't make me feel anything, right? Is, like, also a valid reaction to the game. But I actually was going to ask you this question specifically today. Is Mass Effect Andromeda sci-fi? Is it science fiction? Or is it science fantasy in the way that Star Wars is, right? Because, I mean, no hate to Star Wars. I love Star Wars, but, like, Star Wars is not sci-fi. It is, by the strictest definition of science fiction, right?
Sure. Well, yeah, I can jump on that. I did one point in the science fiction column would be the way that they express AI. I'm not going to spoil anything, but, like, they do... like walk some interesting kind of theoretical roads with like what does it mean to be an AI and like what does that mean in terms of a society's legal system or its ethics and morality, like how does a culture react to the notion of like an independent AI and how does it cope with that. There are some good, sci-fi has treaded that for decades and explored that, but I was glad to see that concept explored. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't count it as science fantasy. I mean, it's not necessarily hard science, but they do attempt to, I don't know, explore some of that stuff. You're riding around in a spaceship and encountering black holes and new species, and I don't know.
Tom Senior, I think it was, Tom Senior wrote this great piece last week about the deadly realities of intergalactic space travel compared to Mass Effect Andromeda that I really enjoyed, about basically like cryosleep. You wouldn't just like startle awake from 600 years in cryosleep and be like, hey, we're here, and get up and like go have a talk, like, and stuff like that. I thought it was an interesting counterpoint, because I think Mass Effect 1 felt a lot more like hard sci-fi. Not that it was hard sci-fi, but like it felt more like that than Andromeda seems to. James actually, the point James brought up of like every planet has the same 4 aliens, just recolored differently, is like very not sci-fi, It's like very just... But that's also because it's a game. So, maybe I'm being nitpicky at that point.
Chris, I want to hear about your recent adventures in Fallout.
Yes, please.
My recent adventures in Fallout. With the settlements mod?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
There's a mod that I first kind of read about, and the maker had put up a bunch of videos about, and I wrote it up as news, but I kind of really wanted to try it out for myself. It's called Sim Settlements. The modder's name is King Gaff, and what it does, I think, is really pretty remarkable. It gives you a very different way to kind of tackle settlements in Fallout 4, but at the same time, it doesn't replace the current system in any way. You can use both. And this mod system is to treat it more like a SimCity type game or a City Skylines type game, where rather than going into a settlement and building everything yourself, like every wall, every ceiling, every painting on the wall, every stick of furniture, every bed, which you can still do and it's still enjoyable in a way. Instead, what you do is you place zones. You basically create zones like in a city builder. So here's a residential plot, here's an industrial plot, here's a farming plot, here's a commercial plot, and it's really pretty neat. I mean, you put the plot down. There's even on residential, there's even like a for rent sign that appears there, and then eventually a settler will walk over and start hammering away at it, and the for rent sign will disappear, and you'll see the buildings sort of slowly appear, and the bed will appear, and the furniture inside, and you basically that's what you do. You kind of zone your settlement, and the settlers take care of most of it themselves. You still have to, put generators for power, and things like water purifiers and all that sort of stuff. But in terms of the buildings, like you can see right now, you just place a plot and see what happens. And each plot has like a power pole, so you just attach one line to it. You don't have to rig up every single thing by yourself. And the idea is, as your settlement grows and you attract more settlers, and more houses are built, then the commercial zones will become active, and they'll walk over and they'll build a store or a bar. One guy in my town built a tailor shop, and again, they decorate it themselves. You'll see things appear on shelves. And as your kind of community grows, as long as you keep your defenses up and have enough food and water for everyone, you'll come back later and you'll see, oh, this guy put a second story onto his house, or this guy added new furniture, and there's lights hanging inside now, and they have lamps and they have power, and it's like, it's really nice. It's a way to make the settlements feel like they're actual settlements instead of just a bunch of NPCs standing around waiting for you to tell them, like, go farm that piece of corn, or here, I'm gonna put a table in your house and I'm gonna decorate it with these things for you. Like, and that's fine. Like, I think it's fine to want to manage every little bit, but it doesn't feel real that way. I think it feels much more real to say, oh, I left for a while and I came back and this guy's house is twice as big, and he's got a collection of his own stuff, and I can tell just by looking, this is where he eats dinner and this is where he stores his things, and it's just a really enjoyable, much more immersive, and much more interesting way to play. I think when I leave my regular settlements and come back, they're exactly the same, except maybe there's one or two new NPCs standing around like, what do I do? Tell me exactly how to live my life. Whereas this one, you come back and, you'll see a new store or a new building or, an improved building. I think it's really ingenious, and I also appreciate, again, like I said, it doesn't replace the system. It just runs side by side, so you can zone a few plots and build some stuff yourself, or do all or one. It's really remarkable. It runs on 3 files that you just drop in your data folder, which is amazing. Installation is very easy. There's a holotape that you set all your options with. It doesn't even seem to conflict with other mods for the most part. There's 1 or 2 that it maybe conflicts with, but I think it's not only a really great concept, but it's a really amazing execution. And I put an article up, I can't remember if it was this week or last week, but everyone should really try it out. If you're still playing Fallout 4, even if you like the settlement system just fine, I would say try this out with one settlement and see how you enjoy it. Because for me, it was really it's really great, I think.
Sounds like a straight up improvement on the game system. Wow. I mean, I love the idea of it giving a greater sense of history and permanence to the settlement, that's evolving over time as you kind of make visits back to turn in quests and whatnot, rather than, and just reducing the amount of busy work. God, I hate that in Fallout. I don't want to have the burden of decorating everyone's house, or even the option of doing that. That's completely unappealing to me.
Yeah, I tended to start really dedicated, I'm going to make this settlement great, but then you'll come back and there'll be 5 settlers there. It's I don't want to build you guys this intricate house. I'll just build a shed and drop 5 mattresses in just so you have a place to sleep.
I mean, Bethesda's outsourcing the level design to you to some extent.
Yeah, and it was fun, and like I say, it was fun initially to kind of to build a settlement from scratch and place everything. But there's, I don't know how many settlements, and there are tons of them. And I just think this is depending on how you want to play, maybe it's better, maybe you're not interested, but it's a wonderful option to have, just a completely different way to do it that doesn't interfere with the original way. So yeah, I think it's just really smashing on all levels.
Do the settlements grow naturally at all in the base game? Like, do they have any sort of, like, if you just left a settlement for a long time, would it just stay small forever?
Yeah, I mean, you'll get more settlers coming if you have enough defenses and enough power and enough water and enough food, NPCs will come and arrive, but they're not gonna build a house or place a bed for themselves. You have to do all that for them. So you're not going to see any real change other than the number of your population.
Gotcha. That's a cool idea to me that you could unlock a new settlement, zone a bunch of stuff, like way more than the population of the town allows, and then just kind of like let it grow and come in and check on it occasionally, but like all the zoning would already be done. I mean, the way Fallout, as far as I understand it, I didn't get too far into Fallout 4, but it gives you a lot of settlements. Like they're the quest lines like push you into a bunch of settlements, and then they all take that amount of time to really grow and dedicate to. So it's like, it seems like the way that the game pushes you to find new settlements is counterintuitive to then how long it takes to actually grow a settlement actively.
Right.
So
this seems like a cool option.
It's great. Like you said, like when I was on my like third or fourth or fifth settlement in the base game, I was like, God, I don't want to build this place from scratch. I mean, I'm sure some people really love doing that, but personally, like I have one main settlement and a drive-in that I really spent a lot of time on. But the rest of them, it's like, oh, this is some shithole farm. I'll just throw some mattresses on the ground and hope they don't die. So this is a much nicer option in terms of like, okay, I'll put some plots out and see what happens, and go off and do other things. And also the really great reward of coming back later and seeing, hey, people are building houses, and it's kind of cool, I think.
There was a question from BattleTank09 in the chat asking if the taxes make the settlement building very profitable. Like, can you actually make money off of that?
You can set your tax level. You can tax residential zones and industrial zones and commercial zones separately if you like. You can set it to low or medium or high. I have not really played long enough to see if that makes much of a difference. I don't know. I think maybe if you're starting out, I don't really remember having any money problems in Fallout 4. It seems like I'm always pretty rich. But I think maybe if you were just starting out, and that might be a nice extra source of income. I pretty much have enough money to buy whatever I like at this point. So
yeah, the salary cap has always been pretty high in Fallout. That's a sports joke for you, because bottle caps. All right, let's go.
Boo. Real quick before we move on, I did want to call out a couple of subscribers that I missed. SirSaws00. I'm going to go with that. Thank you for the subscription. Also, Martin Lucas 24, and then Chris 86 with the 12-month resub.
Wow.
Happy anniversary. We love having you all here. Thank you very, very much. So going on to me, unless, Chris, is there anything else you've been playing that you wanted to call out, or is it mainly just Battlegrounds and Fallout? And
mainly, I took a break from Ark last weekend. So this week I started playing Ark again. But I don't have much to report there. I just started using the Scorched Earth expansion or DLC, whatever it is, which is like Ark, but there seems to be fewer dinosaurs and more horrible pain of survival. So I'm not quite sold on it yet. I spent most of the time hiding in a little kind of a Pueblo shack because I was overheating from the heat like all day.
Okay, so New Mexico simulator, cool.
Kind of, yeah. So we'll see. I'll see if I stick with that or not.
That was the DLC that pissed everyone off, right?
Oh yeah,
because
it's
paid DLC.
The game remains in early access. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's
very controversial.
It's a $20 DLC for a game that hasn't been completed yet, but I would have to say the reviews for it among those who purchased it are very good.
Yep.
So it's probably not a question of quality, but of just sort of I don't know what you would call that.
At least that would just be insult to injury, right? If they released a paid DLC, $20 paid DLC while in early access, and it was just like terrible. Like it was like it was like they tried really hard. It wasn't like a cash grab. Like they tried really hard and it was just bad. Like that would be disappointing. That would be even worse. We actually got 2 more subscribers right there. Rock Jars just subscribed. And Scarfington also subscribed for 12 months, but that doesn't count because he's 5 feet that way behind the camera. He's mad at me, I think, now.
Insider trading here at PC Gamer.
Well, I wanted to say a couple things that I've been playing lately. Last week I brought up Feria as a game I had started the day before, and I've played that game pretty much every day since then, for a not insignificant amount of time. Feria was this free-to-play card game.
What are those?
Yeah.
That's a new concept. Wow.
But it's the one with the board that you build the board as you play it, so kind of like Duelist, but very, very different. Somebody asked last week, which I thought was better, and I still don't think I have an answer, but I still think I know why I like Feria more and why I like Feria more now, that is, not more than Duelist, excuse me. And why I see the games as having 2 very unique places. Like Duelist is the board is already there and every character has 2 movement, so movement becomes very, very important, whereas this game is you're building the board and every character only has 1 movement, so it's slower. It's about the same length of game as slow games, or quick games, but it's slower movement, so you can see things coming from farther away.
Yeah.
You're not going to get like surprise attacked. In Duelist, you could, move your general, place another guy with rush, and then move them, and like you get way across the board. And like there's stuff like that in Feria, but it's like it's not as nearly as much of the point of the game as quick movements like that, at least from what I've seen so far. I'm really, really enjoying it. I think one of the things that really impressed me is there's a ton of single-player content in it. Like there's a lot of puzzles and missions, and I'm stuck on this one mission right now that I literally just can't get by because it's so hard. So there's a lot of good stuff there. It's so hard, man, for games like that to get attention, and there's just so many good little card games. Like I'm having trouble finding time to play Shadowverse too, and Shadowverse is just another like good free-to-play card game, but there are so many good free-to-play card games out right now that it's hard. So many things, Evan. One of the things I will say, though, is I totally miss, every time I play a game that has this mechanic, I forget how much I miss it from Magic the Gathering, which is color-specific cards, and like a card where it's like you need at least 2 greens and a red in order to summon this minion, rather than just need 3 mana, is like, man, that changes the game. Like, it really, really significantly changes the game, and it really is a compelling part of the game that I forget how much I miss every time I play Duelist or Hearthstone, is
deck building?
I suppose, but like just not monocolor mana. Different colors, types of mana or whatever is like really, really important to me in games like that. Some people asking about Gwent. I am still playing Gwent. Battle Tank says, be honest for why you really play Shadowverse. Yeah, it's the anime cards. That's why I play Shadowverse.
I don't think I could play 2 card games simultaneously. Like,
yeah,
I can barely play 2 shooters simultaneously, man.
I'm playing Duelist and Feria pretty simultaneously right now. I dip in Gwent and Eternal occasionally. I'm having trouble getting to the Shadowverse, but I want to, and then I pretty much stopped playing Hearthstone or Elder Scrolls Legends. So like there are like 7 card games that I want to be playing, and I'm playing probably 2 or 3 of them at a time. And I don't spend money in nearly any of them, so...
It's way too polyamorous for me, Tom.
I played some Uno recently.
Man, that draw 4, killer. Get a lot of those, and you have a good deck.
That game's on Steam, actually. They released a relatively decent Steam version of Uno like a couple months ago.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
All right, I need to get hooked up with that. We were playing with just regular cards, like a bunch of cavemen.
I'm glad someone was able to replicate the intricate balance of Uno in a digital form. That's a great relief.
And it's not replicated. It's licensed, Evan.
Oh, okay.
It's official, okay?
Great.
The other game I guess I've been touching on lately that I will quickly mention, because we did mention it earlier in the show, was I went to this event for Heroes of the Storm, where I played Heroes of the Storm, and that combined with the 2.0 update info, like, has got me wanting to play that game again. I kind of never really stopped playing because I just stopped playing because of the progression stuff. I think it's like not a very fun game to progress in. I was only playing with friends and stuff, and so I'm interested in those progression changes. I think they're actually really going to help the game, and I'm interested in jumping back into it. But man, that game is still not very interesting to watch for me. Like, I was watching a bit during the event also, you know, just other people playing because there was a lot of pros there and stuff. And, you know, they're trying really hard to be an esport. They got the HGC and stuff, and they've got all this, like, they're really pushing it to be an esport. They're doing Heroes of the Dorm every year still. But I really don't have much fun watching it anymore.
Well, what's missing? What's different, you know? Is it depth?
I think it's, and this is a little unfair, but I think it's the lack of, like, a carry. I love, as a player, I love that one person can't just completely run away with the game, out-level everyone else, and carry the whole game. I think that's really nice from, like, a playing standpoint. But from a viewing standpoint, you know, you still have these people who are really, really good characters on really, really good, or players on really good heroes, and they can totally snowball games themselves. But that's really far and few between, I feel like. And it's not as much fun for me to watch 5 people walk around a map together and then attack 5 other people and then walk somewhere else on the map together as it is to see, like, one person in League of Legends split pushing a lane while their team is capturing an objective is, like, a way more compelling thing to see, especially when that person can, like, win fights and is not useless on their own. And
Gotcha.
I miss that kind of storyline, that hero storyline.
It sounds like the distinction you're making is Here's the Storm is less of a game where, like, a Kobe Bryant can exist and just take over a game.
Yeah,
you can just
exactly
make 4 3-pointers in a row, and that, like, completely changes, you know, the performance of the team.
And there's still there's still magic to be seen in you know, to continue the basketball reference, like in teams that have 5 players all working perfectly in sync together and like scoring every time they get the ball down the court is, like, that's an amazing thing to watch. But, you know, that's not nearly as common or as exciting as, like, LeBron dunking the ball, you know? Like, that is still going to get the big cheer.
Yeah. Just to tie all this together, I love that Asmodean basketball skin where he throws, like, the fireball basketball and he's wearing a jersey.
It's good stuff.
Terrific.
I guess, I mean, you played Heroes for a while, right? Which was kind of unexpected to me.
In 2015 or early 2016? I don't know.
Yeah. And is looking at the progression stuff, did it kind of interest you at all? Is it something you're thinking of looking back at?
I think what turned me off that game is just the big variety of maps, honestly. I don't like having to sort of change the way I play between maps. I didn't like the feeling I got when, like, oh, here's a map that I'm not good at, or, like, doesn't suit my playing style, and, like, I'm going to have to adjust, and that was just kind of unpleasant to me. Like, as a Counter-Strike player, I'm used to that in that way, but I sort of, I don't know, it's not a good comparison. But yeah, I think that's what turned me off for whatever reason.
No, yeah, that makes sense. And they're getting more and more wild with the map designs, too. They're getting harder to learn them all. That was actually a question I put to Dustin Browder before the game came out, I believe, where I was like, isn't this going to make it really hard for people to learn all these maps? And, like, honestly, I don't know half the maps in the map pool now if I go back to that game. So it's going to be more difficult for me to jump back in.
But yeah, I do admire how much effort they're putting in that game. I mean, good for Blizzard for just going all out and, like, not giving up on that project.
And I totally can't get the vibe, or feel out the vibe of whether it's them trying to save a dying game or whether it's them supporting a game that has an audience and, you know, is worth supporting. You know what I mean? Like, and it could be either. Like, I really don't know whether this is them, like, going, man, Heroes of the Storm is really not taking off, we got to do something to save it, or if it's just them, you know, doing what they do and supporting their games like Blizzard does.
Well, if Heroes of the Storm is successful, it's enriching all of Blizzard's other games because it has arguably the strongest relationship between, in that, like, you're pulling actual characters from Overwatch and everything else in Diablo in. So, yeah.
Yeah, I talked to the production director of the game, and he was like, he basically said to me, he was like, we're really lucky, like, that Overwatch is out right now. Like, not meaning like we would be dead without it, but like the fact that they can draw from that character pool is so like good, you know. Yeah. Real quick question from the chat. Max Ursa asked if Calder was there. Yeah, Calder was there. He's a lovely human being. Just in case you were worried. I always get worried that like a celebrity I admire is like actually a terrible person in real life, but everyone I met at that event was lovely. So the Heroes of the Storm community seems to be pretty nice. And I actually overheard, this is some gossip and rumors, but I overheard one pro player being like, yeah, every time that Riot hosts one of these events, like none of the players talk to each other. Like they're all just like focused on making YouTube videos, and everyone at Heroes of the Storm's event is so friendly with each other. And I was like, oh man, that's nice. Well, anyway, let's move on to our main topic, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Hooray! A battle royale style game. Actually, why don't one of you? I've been talking for like 5 minutes. Why don't one of you tell me about what the game is?
Yeah. So this is the latest iteration of a subgenre of survival, I would say, called battle royale. If you're completely unfamiliar with battle royale, you haven't played H1Z1, you haven't seen the cool Japanese movie based on a book, you have no exposure to the Hunger Games, God bless you. Basically, it's, in this case, it's 100 people on a 64 square kilometer island fighting it out. It's deathmatch format you can play, or you can play in pairs or in squads of up to 4. So yeah, but the other thing worth noting is, hey, it's a third-person, first-person shooter, and a lot of this game's DNA comes from Arma. So Battle Royale was a Arma 2 and Arma 3 mod of basically this style of game. If you've played Arma, you're already kind of seeing this, and they're like, oh, this just looks like Arma in terms of the art design, the engine, the style of the map, the style of the buildings. It's all like kind of very Russian or Czech inspired. And that also extends to like the weapon handling, different movement styles. You can free look, so in other words, you can move your head independently of your body. And I do it right there. Yep, there we go. So yeah, that's kind of the game from a glance.
And so you already mentioned it had its roots in other games, but like, where does it fit in amongst those games? Because Arma's a very hardcore game. H1Z1's a bit more arcadey.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where DayZ fits in the middle. You guys have a lot more experience with these games than I do.
Yeah, Chris can talk about this more. I haven't really played H1Z1, but from what I understand about H1Z1, this game is slower, grittier. I think it's prettier for sure. But H1Z1, for whatever reason, like the movement mechanics, this isn't a criticism. It's like very acrobatic. You can do like weird bunny hopping. You can headshot people perfectly at like pretty long range. It's very arcadey in that way in terms of weapon handling, that you can jump out of vehicles and just like snapshot people. That's what I see people doing at a very high level in H1Z1. Whereas here, you got to be a little bit more careful, slower, deliberate. Everything feels a little bit heavier. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, the first time in Battlegrounds where I was running across the field and someone started shooting at me, my first instinct was to jump around like an idiot, because that's what you do in H1Z1. And as soon as I did that in Battlegrounds, I was like, oh, I can't do that. That will slow me the hell down, because as you would if you're running as fast as you can and you decide to jump straight up in the air, you're going to lose some of your forward momentum. So it is definitely, when I talked to Brendan Green a few months ago, and he said he was kind of aiming kind of down the middle between the kind of simulation of Arma, the complexity of that, and the kind of arcadey nature of King of the Kill. And it is kind of, I think, I'd say I can't really say which it's closest to, but it is definitely less kind of arcadey, goofy than H1Z1 is.
Definitely. So yeah, for me as an Arma player, I mean, I'm really deeply into this game. I think it's terrific. I think it's the best game in this genre right now. And a lot of that is based on the fact like how comfortable it feels. I think one of the things that the game does so successfully is it compresses what Arma is and its mechanics. So what I mean by that is the map. It's Arma, but the map is smaller. Or DayZ is a good comparison too. If you played a lot of DayZ, like you're playing on a 64 square kilometer map as opposed to a 270 or 225 square kilometer map. So many times smaller. And I should mention this is a key mechanic. You're forced to move into a smaller and smaller portion of the map over time. So at the outset of the game, you're dropped in from an airplane. You fall, like you pick where you want to fall roughly. You're trying to rush and get a gun. There's sort of this sprint phase to be one of the first people to get a weapon and defend yourself, right? Just like Hunger Games or Battle Royale. So after that, a circle or a ring is placed on the map, and everybody has to scramble into that radius, basically. And if they don't, they take damage over time. You're probably going to die if you're outside of that ring for too long. So it's forcing everybody into like a fight in a concentrated and more concentrated space. And there are like new circles introduced that are smaller every few minutes. So you're forced to move a lot, right? But it just simplifies and compresses other aspects of Arma. You can see here at the top of the UI, you have a compass at all times. The compass is not like a discrete item in your inventory that you have to find and equip and like pull out like it is in Arma or DayZ. So in that way, it's, I guess, less realistic if that's something you're really passionate about. But the thing I've noticed the most anecdotally is all of my friends, I think literally all of them who bounced off Arma, who like tried it, like gave it on a shot, were like really excited about it, and were like, wow, I want to play this cool, serious military simulation game, but they kind of like bounced off its complexity, its intricacy for whatever reason. They're coming back for this game because they see like, oh, it's just fundamentally a game about like instant action, short matches that are maybe about 20 minutes in length if you're successful, and the weapon handling is like, I would say, like as good or slightly better than Arma in some ways. So it's not fiddly, it's not clunky, but it still has a lot of the nuance and fidelity, that Arma has. So
yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that always scared me away from Arma. Was I was always really interested in doing that sort of squad-based stuff, but it seems like a hard game. Like it really seemed like a difficult thing to even learn the basics of. And I like what I've seen so far of Battlegrounds. I haven't actually jumped in and played with you guys yet, but I like what looks like a nice kind of midpoint, a nice way where I can do a little bit more arcadey stuff, but still have that sort of tactical element.
Yeah, I think what it reproduces best is it's the experience of moving over big open terrain, ideally with your friends. Like you should be playing this game in a squad if you have the ability. That is the best way to play it. But it's the experience of like, I think spotting other players in DayZ and in Arma is like a very unique skill and experience in a way that isn't true in Call of Duty, Battlefield, like any other big shooter. You really have to use your eyes and your intuition and your ears to sort of like spot little glimpses, little bits of pixels that are moving on the horizon, and also like, so I'm talking about stealth basically. It's a stealth game in a way, but on like a much different scale. It's not a stealth game in the way that we talk about like Dishonored or Thief or something like that, where you're like hiding in corners and stuff like that. Like you have to think about how much of myself am I revealing at like hundreds of meters away, right? Like if I drive this car, there's going to be a cost to that in terms of the sound that I generate across the map, or like if I fire this gun, who's going to hear that? Who could like come around the corner next to me? So I find that super gratifying. It's the experience of navigating across big pieces of open terrain, looking for cover. And again, you can see right here in the video clip, this is an instance where I'm caught behind that energy field that's moving, so I'm taking damage over time, and I have to get to safety. I have to move across this like big open farm where I'm going to get shot. You're forced to make a lot of snap decisions, and it's a fun context to be in from a competitive perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also, there's a great sort of in terms of decision making, like when do I engage? Should I engage?
Yes.
If you see someone, the natural inclination is to absolutely kill them because you need to be the last one left. So why wouldn't you shoot absolutely everyone you see? But you really have to kind of gauge like, okay, he's kind of far away. I don't have a great shot. As soon as I pull the trigger, everyone else in the area is going to know where I am. And it's that kind of thing where you kind of have to figure out if it's worth it to take a shot, or if maybe just knowing this player is in that area is enough to help you out later.
Exactly. Yeah, I've got a clip or two as we're watching some highlights that I pulled down from my sessions where I love being in a position. I love that the game facilitates that decision making you're talking about, Chris. Because like I spot somebody, and they're behind. They're sort of like near a rock or something, and I could shoot now, but if I don't kill them in the next like 3 seconds, they're going to get behind that cover. They're going to have a chance to return fire. They're going to have a chance to heal. I'm going to like. There are windows of opportunity, right, at range, and the weapons themselves introduce a lot of uncertainty about like. Am I going to be able to hit this person? How far away are they? Like, this is a game that still has, you're dialing in the range of your scope. In other words, like, the center of your scope is ranged at 200 or 300 or 400 meters, and you're trying to guesstimate exactly how far away that person is, right? And that's a trait of armor that they brought over. Now, I think it's arguably a little bit less. Here's like exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm about to spot somebody off to my left. I'm like hiding behind a bridge here. And you notice that I don't shoot at them at first, even though I have the advantage. They haven't spotted me yet. In just a moment here, because I'm like, okay, I want to wait until they're absolutely exposed, and I have the greatest window of opportunity to get them, right, where they're the furthest distance from cover. And there's a lot of like really fun tension there when this happens, of like anticipating and like it's a classic. I mean, if you're getting really deeply into like game design. I know something you don't know is this like core feeling in games like poker, of I know something you don't know and I have to not reveal it to you. I have to sort of, so here I'm saying like I could shoot this guy now, but I'm waiting a few more seconds. Okay, he's out. Great opportunity. I got him. And I find that really exhilarating. It's a game about hunting. It's a game about tracking, anticipation, and like I love having those kind of physical awareness skills tested.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the stuff that always interested me about Arma. Whereas the scope dialing and stuff is, it's still intimidating to me.
Sure.
Like I guess it's not as much as in Arma where like you're spending long amounts of time, backpacking through the woods at the commands of somebody else, and this is like a little bit more. You die, you go again. That's okay.
Oh, exactly. I mean, you can die in 30 seconds and you're back in another match. And that's kind of in the back of your mind at all times. And
is that satisfying? Is the game still fun when you fall into a match and die immediately and re-queue?
I think so. I kind of laugh. I mean, that's just my personal reaction. I'm curious what Chris thinks. But, like, yeah, it's tense. And there are, like, little moments of fear and horror because you get surprised by somebody. Like, someone's often – I had a moment the other day where – I walked into a factory and I'm like, oh, there's like loot lying right there. And somebody was just camping right around the corner with a shotgun. They knew I would go for that loot and they just blasted me instantly. And I'm like, good one, like clever. And you're sort of like shocked for a moment and then you're kind of back into it. I don't know. What do you think, Chris? How have you experienced that?
For me, I'm not particularly great at it. I actually had some good matches in the beta, but I have not done very well in early access. Typically, I'll power shoot in, I'll loot for a while, I'll get geared up, and maybe I'll get a kill or two, and then I'm dead. So for me, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 matches, and then I'm kind of like, all I've done with my time is run around houses and put on gear, and then run for 20 minutes. If I'm not near the circle, or if I'm in the circle, wait for 20 minutes, and then I'm executed. So it's not like it's something I would play, I think, in short bursts because I do kind of get, okay, I don't really want to jump back in and start over. And but it is, I would say, pretty quick to, when you're dead, you can just jump back in and start over. It's not like I don't feel the same despair as I did in DayZ when I would die, because then I'm like, oh, that's like 6 hours of looting I have to do again. This is obviously very quick. There's guns everywhere. It's not like you won't find good stuff within a few minutes.
Yep. And the other thing is, there's a passive currency that you accumulate for cosmetics. So when you end a match, you get points based on your ranking. In other words, did you die first or did you die last, or did you not die at all? And then also, how many hits did you score on people? Like, how much damage did you do, and how many people did you kill successfully? Those are all like calculated separately and tallied up, and you get X amount of points. You can spend those points on these like item crates, basically, that give you T-shirts or helmets or other pieces of cosmetic gear that like signify how much time you spent in the game, basically how successful you are. So that's a nice little bonus system.
Yeah, I mean, I'm amazed how popular this genre as a whole has been getting, right? Like the battle royale genre, there's H1Z1, as you said, has battle royale, and then they have. Is Ark's King of the Kill still a thing? Like, is that still?
Ark had Survival of the Fittest,
Oh,
which
excuse me, yeah.
did not do very well. Even admitted to me by the developers, said that didn't really work out for them. And then there was something called The Culling,
Right.
which was briefly kind of hot when it first hit early access. I'm not sure how it's doing now, but I really don't hear much about it.
It's dropped off a lot. Yeah.
I think the possibility there was that it had crafting in it, where you could kind of craft items, which I thought was okay. And I thought The Culling was okay. I don't think long term you really want to be building, weapons and bandages that much while you're playing. You kind of would rather just grab them and get to do what you're doing.
But I mean, H1Z1, I mistakenly said Ark, but King of the Kill is H1Z1's battle royale name.
Yeah.
And
Right.
like, that's what I just think of with H1Z1 now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think of the more Arma style game.
I mean, H1Z1 is the number 3 game on Steam behind Dota and Counter-Strike. It's enormous.
It's huge.
And it's really going to be interesting to see how much that community migrates over. But to answer your question directly, Twitch is a big reason for this whole genre's success and massive growth over the past year or two. If you're sitting down to watch somebody play one of these games, I think you are guaranteed drama and intensity, and over a short time scale, right? I think for the same reason like Rocket League gets a lot out of Twitch. It's a 5-minute match. You're going to see some goals. You're going to see some cars just crashing into each other. Like, you're guaranteed those like simple, gratifying pieces of action, right? You're going to, in this case, in Battlegrounds, you're going to see somebody dropping out of a plane and that like sprint toward a weapon, that uncertainty of like, are they going to live or die? You get those moments of tension of you see somebody on the horizon, like, what are they going to do about it? Cars running over people. And that's all going to be over in about 15, 20 minutes at the most. So like, that's very digestible as a piece of video, right? You don't have to like, with DayZ, there's this big open-ended question of like, and other survival games. For me, I know a lot of people like these kind of long sessions, but it's like, if I'm watching at lunch or I'm like just turning it on before I run out the door, it's like, I don't want to watch somebody's like open-ended wandering across an open map with like kind of no restrictions around it,
Yeah, right now, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is the third most played game on Steam by current player count, with Dota and CSGO above it, of course. And H1Z1 King of the Kill is 6th, but only, 1.5 to 2,000
Well,
below?
their peak players is higher. I think H1Z1 has a lot more of a European audience based on that. We're looking at steamcharts.com, by the way.
H1Z1 peak players is almost double.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any danger of H1Z1 just like disappearing. It's going to remain a very popular game for a lot of players, but Battlegrounds has had longer to sort of gestate. Again, it's one of the same core people that designed H1Z1 King of the Kill, so he kind of knows what he's doing, obviously, to iterate on it and make it better. And I think the game just looks cooler. It's more grounded, grittier.
How much of that is part of that, by the way? Because Chris, I remember you saying that it looks better than H1Z1, and Evan, you just said something similar. Like, every time, and maybe this is just the ignorant me, and I should just shut up, but like, every time I see one of these games, they look identical to me. Like, if you told me to pick out Arma, DayZ, King of the Kill, and Battle Royale out of a lineup, like, I probably could, but it would take me a moment. Like, those games look so similar to me.
I don't know. I feel like they're. I don't know. I guess I feel like they're pretty distinct. I think King of the Kill and Battlegrounds look very, very different. And I do. Yeah. I mean, Battlegrounds is in Unreal. It looks really great. I think the art design I think is great. King of the Kill is built I think on an MMO engine because it came from their survival game. And sorry, can you hear that? Probably. Yeah, it's the leaf blowers again. I think they do look. It's getting really loud. I'm going to shut up.
No worries. Yeah, so I think H1Z1 it tends to look a little more saturated, almost. I wouldn't say cartoony, but everything's pretty bright and colorful. Battlegrounds again kind of carries the Arma aesthetic over. It's a little desaturated to get those kind of bright bloom lighting in the background. Tons of foliage. And they have, I think one of the improvements they make on a map like Chernaruss that is familiar to, that's like the base Arma 2 map, is they have a lot of like visually distinct areas. They have these like really cool, we just saw a moment ago, it's like a flooded city. You can't see right now, but there are these sort of like wooden decks, like wooden sidewalks on stilts or whatever that they put up in the city. They're really kind of cool and interesting. It gives that map area a very distinct feel. You kind of know where you are. And there's some like interesting like kind of golden wheat fields and ruins that we're seeing here. So it's not too homogeneous, other than the fact that it's like otherwise like big sprawling open rural terrain in villages. So
yeah, there was one fight. I'm going to try to find this clip. Don't show this part, Will. as I look for this, that was this great fight like in a
a firing range.
Like in a firing range, yeah.
Yeah, that's in particular nice because thematically you find a lot of guns in this area, which makes total sense. Like, why wouldn't you find a bunch of assault rifles in a firing range?
Right.
But it's a really fun area to encounter people in. Because again, most of the players at this point know that this is like a high value zone for guns. So it's people tend to flock there if they're nearby. So it feels more dangerous, like higher risk, higher reward, and you can see all these like really cool, interesting pieces of cover and windows, and it's like very asymmetrical. And yeah, some folks feel like the third, hardcore Arma players certainly feel like the fact that you can be third person at any time removes a lot of the tactical complexity. You can see people without them seeing you at all, right? You have that camera floating above your head, but I don't know. I haven't found that like particularly bad. There are definitely some aspects of the game that need a lot of improvement. I think Chris, you had a post about this today, like the weapon sounds, the directionality of it. They provided this like really deep explanation for how that system works, but ultimately, I do not feel like I am able to discern weapon direction when shot at, like half the time.
I have a really, really difficult time telling what direction I'm being shot at from. And I know we're not the only ones. I've seen Reddit posts about that, like how do you tell? And I appreciate a game that doesn't just give you a big red arrow from your left shoulder if that's where the gun's coming from. I'm not looking for that, but I think they do need to kind of work on their system so that if I've got my headphones on and there's a shot coming from upper left, that I know that kind of just from the sound of it. So hoping that's something that'll be worked on
for sure.
So they went with this very realistic system, right? Or based off of real kind of like how bullet sounds work.
Yeah, exactly. So you will actually, it explains in our post on PCGamer.com right now. If you're looking at somebody who's shooting at, you will see the muzzle flash, and then you'll hear the crack of the bullet actually passing over your head, right? And then you'll hear the gunfire as that kind of sound from the gun travels toward you and reaches you. So it's that like three-piece in theory, but in the experience, it doesn't work. I don't think it's not functional. I think you need to give players good information, and
it's still a game.
Exactly. And Arma does it. Arma does it just fine. DayZ does it just fine. You're not disoriented in DayZ. I think they find a really nice balance of actually disorienting you a little bit and creating uncertainty about where it comes from, but you still, over time, as more shots are taken, you get more and more like clear information. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, performance is another one. It's like we definitely have to mention that. Although the game performs well, I'd say overall. If you look at a couple of the big cities in the map, in other words, like you literally turn your camera toward them, you'll drop like 30 frames sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And like Arma players like me, I'm just like, whatever, that's fine. I would just cope with that. But this game is a little more tactical. It's obviously competitive and like really brutal. So it matters in those moments when you're like, like you're dueling with somebody at like, inside a house or something, and you're just chugging along on your 1080, even you're like, oh God, come on, don't do this.
Is that a strategy then? If you get into like a 1v1 fight with someone, you position so the city is behind you, and then they have to be looking at that while playing?
Honestly, yes.
Even just driving, I'm like, I'm not going to look to the left. I'm not going to look to the left because that's where the big city is, and then I'll slow you down.
Oh my God.
But they have said, that's obviously one of their key things to work on is optimization and trying to stop frames from dropping and things like that. So
well, there's that
my biggest problem right now is like every third game I just start rubber banding like crazy. I went in the other day and the airplane was halfway across the island, and then suddenly it went all the way back to the edge because it was such an issue in the match, and I just said, yeah, I'm going to quit right here because that's a big jump. But I guess that's what early access is for. And
there's the terror of like the early access survival game that is never leaves early access, right? Like that's a joke at this point. But they seem to have been pretty clear about like it's going to be in early access for 6 months. I think they said is their goal, and then they'll take in the feedback, they'll fix things, and they'll then release it. It will hit 1.0 after that time, right? Which is, if it gets delayed, it gets delayed, whatever. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But, like, just having kind of, like, an awareness of that at so early on in a game's early access life is, like, super refreshing to me. Like, even if the dev is just like, this might change or whatever, but this is, like, what we want is, like, really nice compared to I still have no idea when H1Z1's leaving early access. I still have no idea when ARC is leaving early access, right? Like, they have goals, I'm sure, but, like, yeah, I just like knowing a general number even.
I think everyone in early access has goals, and I think even most of them state them. I know King of the Kill was supposed to come out early access in September. The week before that, they said, no, it's not coming out in September, and here we are in March. Still not any given date for leaving it. Conan Exiles just announced, hey, we're going to spend a year in early access. It's like, those don't really mean that much to me as many early access games as I play. It's good. I think they all have goals and roadmaps and kind of an end date, but I think it's very hard to take really any of them very seriously at this point. And I don't even personally feel it's that big of a deal. Like, you're not ready, you're not ready. Take your time, make sure it's right. I hear 6 months. I think, well, good luck. That's pretty optimistic. It does feel to me like the game is in pretty good shape coming into early access. I think it's very playable. I'm pretty impressed. It's only been in development for a little over a year, and I think they're showing a pretty strong hand with what they've got. I don't know if it'll be on 6 months. But
well,
I'm skeptical of anyone who has that the confidence of like this is our goal. We're coming on this month because we've just seen it again and again and again.
I admire it. Okay.
You admire it, okay.
But something that we're dancing around, and Evan, you mentioned a little, is that they're on Unreal. Like that's got to be a huge part of this, right? Is that they're building this on an engine I'm not sure, what is H1Z1 using? Do you know?
It's an MMO engine. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. I want to say something like
Daybreak's technology.
Gotcha,
right?
yeah. But like the fact that they're using Unreal has to be massively helpful. Like that's the reason, probably the main reason that DayZ is still in early access, right? Is because they decided to build this whole new engine.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of the DayZ team, but like converting Arma's engine, which is the real virtuality engine, which is like very trustworthy, is like one way of thinking about it. Arma is meant to be played cooperatively, right? So you're not thinking about anti-cheat at all too much. I mean, they had like a battle eye kind of stamped on there as an anti-cheat solution. Whereas in DayZ, anti-cheat and like all these kind of different exploits, if you played it in the beta phase, if you played it when it was a mod, this game was like very vulnerable to that kind of stuff. So they had like really renovate and completely turn on its head this idea of, because I mean, if you look at like Arma and DayZ, they kind of look similar in terms of just what's on screen, what's happening. You're shooting guns. You're in third person or first person. It's a big map, but the play experience in terms of like the tech underneath it is like very, very different. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know of many Unreal games who are massive scale maps and also like hyper intricate ballistics and like. Lots of like many indoor areas, 100 players on a server. Like that's got to be pretty unique within Unreal. But yeah, so far so good for the most part. Yeah.
Well, I'm interested to see where this game is going to go. Honestly, I think that it's cool that you guys are already having fun with it, and that you know, as Chris said, we'll see if it is out in 6 months. But I think it's storming the Twitch streams and the Steam charts and all that jazz right now, at least. So it's had a pretty explosive kind of entry into the genre, and it's just cool to see this genre growing more. Like I was talking about, I didn't think Heroes of the Storm was too fun to watch competitively. I think that in a similar but opposite way, I think the Battle Royale genre is actually a lot of fun to watch if you have the right kind of like commentators to guide you through the experience. Like, because it has those moments. It has that like following that one person from 120 or whatever it is all the way down to 4, you know, is like really, really exciting. And I'd be okay with seeing this as like an esport and as a competitively streamed game.
Yeah, there's certainly a fair number of barriers to that. The asymmetry of the map, you know, for one thing, the scale of the map.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was an esport, it'd have to be a very loose kind of playful one. I mean, Chris recently attended an H1Z1 esports event, and I don't know if he can talk about it yet, but really curious to hear about how that went. But like the fact that like the game begins with you jumping out of a plane and like competing for resources, like it's, I don't know. I have trouble seeing how that transfers exactly to like a scoreboard and like a tournament brackets and stuff, you know. So I don't know. I'm not sure how a game like this exactly makes a transition to like a formal presentation of esports.
It's also not the easiest thing to have, 100 players and know where you need to have the camera watching for, you can kind of see where players are maybe close to each other. There's no guarantee that anything exciting is going to happen. I can't really talk. Well, I can't tell you the results of the tournament I attended. I can tell you that it seems like a difficult thing to wrangle into a sort of really great watchable thing, because it's really hard to tell where the action's going to happen, and a lot of times even what's happening or who's shooting who. You've got tons of players running around, you hear gunshots, someone falls. It's like, what just happened? We don't know. But it is definitely, it is something I do enjoy watching on Twitch, though. There's always, like you said, there's a guarantee of action happening, within 10, 15 minutes.
I think the end result we're going to see as these games become very successful. I mean, okay, they're some of the most successful games on Steam right now, right? Survival and Battle Royale, I think it's only going to get bigger. But I think what I would love to see and what I would predict is we're not going to just see like a bunch more Battle Royale games. That'll probably happen a little bit, but we're going to see a lot of developers like think very carefully about, as they build competitive games, as they build cooperative games as well, like what is the most Twitch-friendly way to make this? And I don't know, that may lead to some bad design decisions, but you think about like, how can I build a game that markets itself? Because it's, as a spectating experience, it's incredibly intense. It's over in 5 or 10 minutes, like Rocket League, which has sold 3 million copies or something ridiculous. No, way more than that.
A lot.
Excuse me, on multi-platform. How can I design a competitive game that is just gratifying to watch? Because then people will broadcast it, right? If it has also enough depth there and enough interesting gameplay mechanics. So yeah, I think like short form competitive games is something we're going to see a lot more of. Battle Right is sort of another vote in that direction. That sort of team based, or I think you even play it single player, competitive MOBA style game. So yeah, and hopefully, honestly, I hope we get more of that style of game, because I can't tell you the last time I watched a Dota match or a League match, just because they're an hour or something long.
Yeah, the time commitment's a big part of that for me too.
I mean, a League tournament, I'm losing an entire weekend and then some. Like.
Buttface Jones actually said earlier up above, I'm still bitter that you have to call these games Battle Royale games, because MOBA was already taken by a completely different type of game. But it's kind of true. Like this MOBA, multiplayer online battle arena, would be a great genre title for this type of game.
Well, in another dimension, that's what they're called. So There you go.
Didn't someone try to push, what was the ARC developers trying to name their Battle Royale game? Was it MOSA or something?
Oh yeah, multiplayer online survival arena. MOSA.
Survival arena, right, MOSA.
I think it was the ARC developers.
I don't think that's going to catch on.
That's way too close to the Indian appetizer samosa for me.
You want to watch samosas this weekend?
Damn it, Tom.
Well, let's, on that note from Buttface Jones, open it up to a Twitch chat Q&A. Tag us with @PCGamer in the Twitch chat if you have a question for us about Battlegrounds or anything we played this week or any of the news or anything on your minds that we didn't talk about. We would love to talk about them. About rebranding MOBAs into lane pushers. We can talk about that. If you are watching on youtube.com/PCGamer or listening at PCGamer.com/podcast or any of those places, you're always welcome to join us at twitch.tv/PCGamer Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Pacific time. We usually do the Twitch chat Q&A around 2 to 2:15.
Hey, I have a question first.
Yes.
For Evan. Have you used or killed anyone with a melee weapon in Battlegrounds yet?
No, I don't think I have. I think in solo, I think I've had 17 kills, in squad, something like 24 or 30. I've used pistols. I've thrown grenades at people but not killed them with grenades. I have. Is it clumsy? Have you done it? I mean, it seems like not great as a system.
I have not. Well, the one thing is, like, guns. You have a gun pretty much very easily and quickly, so you have something other than a handheld weapon.
Yeah.
The only time I've thrown a punch, because there was one match where I did not find a gun, and I was in there for 20 minutes and just didn't find a gun. Part of it's that I was in a very remote area, but one that was also had been looted, and I was just finding grenades and things like that. So I did throw a punch. It did not go well for me because the other guy had a big gun that he killed me with.
Yeah.
But no, I have not had the chance to use I don't know, what do they have? A frying pan.
There's a machete.
A machete. I think there's a scythe or something, or a
Crowbar as well.
crowbar. Yeah, I have not had the opportunity to actually bonk someone. Although I saw a video of someone bonking someone with a frying pan.
Nice. I've run over someone with a car. That was gratifying.
I've done that a few times too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, congrats.
That's great.
I'm glad we can share in the violence together.
Crazy
Yes.
Canuck says he managed to kill someone with his fists once,
Wow.
which is impressive.
You can headshot people with your hands.
What?
I've seen that. Like, it does, like, detect it differently in terms of damage. Yeah.
That's so silly. You know, it's funny hearing that because, like, the only Battle Royale game I really got into was a Minecraft mod called, like, the Hunger Games mod, where people would build these really cool custom maps for that. This was, years and years ago, but, like, that was almost entirely melee. Like, you wouldn't find bows and arrows very often. So it's funny to see how far different these are from that, where it's like, oh, no, I haven't even tried a melee weapon yet. It's like, it's unthinkable. Let's grab some questions, though, from our subscribers. Starting it off with Buttface Jones asks, what are the odds that Quake Champions revives the arena shooter genre beyond just its own player base? High hopes or no hopes? I don't know. I mean, I think there have been a fair number of really good arena shooters recently that have not done too much to, like, completely revitalize the genre. So I'm not sure if this game could, like, will do that.
I think there's been many attempts over the past 5-ish years, including one that was like, Toxic? Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Where Toxic, it was funny. Toxic, marketers say that you should never do this, but Toxic marketed itself based on what it was not. So it was like, it doesn't have iron sights. It doesn't have, all these other things that, like, DLC and microtransactions and all this stuff. I think it's really unlikely. We've had stuff like Rats Instagib as well.
And Doom multiplayer too didn't really have legs.
I do not think the arena shooter will make any kind of significant return. I think Quake Champions will be fine. From what we played at PAX East.
Yeah.
Really good impression. The character abilities don't really get in the way of the experience. It's classic Quake. It's a fast-paced game. The weapons are intact in terms of their design, how they function. But I think that the arena shooter audience, whatever that is, will flock to that game. Quake will draw some general shooter players, but I don't think it's going to revive anything anytime soon. I just think, like, the majority of shooter players do not want to compete for power-ups. They don't want to compete for guns that spawn specific positions on the map. That's just not an appealing thing. But there is a lot of people who love incredible, like, high skill ceiling movement in shooters. They want to bunny hop. They want to rocket jump. They want to do all those kind of like very technical techniques, if I can put it that way. So I think that's the audience that the game will draw, but I don't think it'll revive anything.
Alrighty. Let's take another one. Varendeel asks, if someone in the future were creating a degree in PC gaming history and asked for your input on 3 games representing this decade that should be a vital part of the curriculum, what would you suggest? Wow. Yes, I'm aware this decade isn't finished. That is a complex question, but a great one. So if you in the future had to choose 3 games from this decade to represent this decade in PC or in gaming or in PC gaming.
Well, you're basically asking what are going to be the most influential games of 2010 to 2020?
Well, I think you'd have to put Overwatch up there.
I think you might have to.
Bit of a phenomenon.
Yeah. Would you? I don't know.
League of Legends came out in 2009, but in October 2009. So I feel like I'd include that in the list because its influence was felt all throughout this decade. Right?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess you could put it that way. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure how pedantic you'd be in terms of when things came out.
Yeah.
Minecraft is number 1, though. Minecraft is the top of that list. It is Minecraft is the reason we have early access.
Yeah.
Period.
It's true.
So that influence alone is significant. Never mind the fact that, like, it's a big reason the survival genre is big. It's going to spawn, like, it's already spawning like an entire new generation of players who are interested in like engineering and building as a concept, right? I mean, the kids that grew up on Minecraft, think about the games that you grew up on, right? When you were like 12, 11, 8, something like that. For me, it was stuff on Sega. It was stuff like Quake, Wolfenstein, Doom, console platformers. Those weren't necessarily games that are about building, and they're certainly not games about where you're making your own fun. Like, you're fundamentally responsible for your own fun. And I'm really excited about the influence Minecraft is going to have in 5 or 10 more years in terms of the gamers that it's created. We grew up on a lot of RPGs, a lot of those core genres, and creative games where you're building and collaborating with friends. That's just going to be a fundamental concept from now on, which is really exciting.
Maybe put CSGO on that list too, just because it started a whole conversation about what a digital good is, and that could, the decade's not over, and in future years people could look back at that as an example of conversations that we're going to have about do you own this thing that you own in your Steam library? So I think that could have a potential impact in that sense. And anyone saying Dota, I love you. You can like Dota more than League of Legends, but League of Legends would absolutely be the more influential game there, in my opinion. If League hadn't struck gold, I don't think Dota 2 would exist, to be perfectly honest. That game came out years after League of Legends. This is not 100% not starting any sort of argument about which is the better game or which is the bigger game now or any of that. I just think that League, Dota owes a lot to League in terms of its success. And League owes a lot to the original Dota, so it's a give and take in that regard. But I think Minecraft is definitely the one I think everyone could agree on, at least right now. Let's move on though, because that was a great question, but we do have a lot more to get to. We touched on this earlier, but subscriber Flaxcam asks, do you feel that the chances of Destiny 2 coming to the PC are good, and will you play it? I am more skeptical, but I am completely confident in it will come to PC, just because of how confident Tim seems to be. Literally, he filled me with confidence, where he was just no, it is. Just don't even stop even questioning it. So much so that I was all right, I guess I'll just trust his instincts in this. He's been doing it a lot longer than me.
It'll come to PC. You can bet on it.
Yeah. So I trust in their confidence. I would not be surprised if we still got screwed over, though. That's always the way I feel about games like this.
I mean, maybe it'll be delayed slightly, but what's the release date now? It's September for Destiny 2?
I think so.
I believe so.
Yeah.
It's early-ish.
Are you guys interested in playing it, though, if and when it does come to PC? I think I'm going to, for sure.
I'm in wait-and-see mode. I do not want to get sucked into a multiplayer, an MMO shooter type situation, because that'll consume me. And also, I have a sense that although it will be a very polished game, it probably won't deliver the competitive experience that I prefer. So probably not, honestly.
What about you,
Yeah,
Chris?
I don't know. I felt like it kind of felt like maybe The Division was a sort of Destiny-ish type of experience, and I have to say, I thought The Division was okay, but it was not something that really grabbed me and dragged me in for very long. Something about shooting some NPC in the head 46 times is like it was the same reason that I never really got into Borderlands. I guess bullet sponge type things don't have a particular appeal to me, but who knows? Maybe.
I'm interested in trying it. I think it'll be cool. But that is literally me feeding the hype train. So maybe I should calm down and shut up. And we should move on to the next question, which is, I lost it now. Chris86. There we go. Do you buy many early access games, or do you tend to wait for the full release? I almost never buy early access games. I almost never play early access games that I initially have to cover. Like I played Divinity Original Sin 2 when it launched into early access to cover it, and then I was like, I'm gonna wait for the full game now. And I did the exact same thing with Pit People, where I was like, I played through what Pit People had in early access at launch, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna wait till it comes out now. I think, unlike a lot of people, that early access has been a net positive on games. I think that you see some incredible things coming out of that ability to or that method of releasing games. But yeah, I also conscientiously refrain from participating in those games because I want to play the full things, basically.
I bought quite a few. Quite a few. Honestly, I don't know. If I see something that I want to play, I don't really... If it's in early access, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm not buying that till it's done. If it's something, I guess maybe I have like an instant gratification thing. But I buy a lot. I don't recommend anyone buy early access games, but I do buy a lot.
Same here. I think Astroneer is one of my favorite games, period, over the past 12 months, and that's a pre-alpha early access game. Fabulous survival game, Astroneer. Play that. But otherwise, Darkest Dungeon, I think they did it perfectly on early access. They launched, and they were like with a very complete game that they iterated on. There was some controversy along the way, but they did great. Terrific early access game. And Battlegrounds is going great so far for me. Really enjoying that. One of my favorite things of the year. So, yep.
All right, so that was from Chris. Now, Kunifu asks, why is the community of Battlegrounds so awful? Ouch. Have you guys had bad experiences with that?
I think my first tip, we published a list of tips for how to get started with Battleground. My first was mute
Everybody.
mute the voice, because it is awful. But I don't think it's probably any different than any other sort of lobby type experiences I've had. People are awful. Not everyone, but
how often are you in a voice lobby with 100 people? That's the difference. It's the scale. I mean,
probably the scale.
Most rounds of Battlefield or Counter-Strike, if you're in a big match, like, you're going to hear some of the same stuff, but at a lower proportion because you're not with 100 other people.
Wait, do they really have open comms with 100 people? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That sounds like torture.
In the lobby and in the plane. In fact, during the beta, I would bail out of the plane as soon as I could because it was like, just please shut up, because I don't know if you could mute people then, or if I just didn't know the hotkey for it. But I would just be like, I have to get out of this plane. These people are driving me insane.
It's actually a
They're
strategy.
awful.
You're harassing people out of the plane with by saying something racist or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is like, it's a tense deathmatch environment. Like, you're about to like jump from a plane and like compete with everybody for resources and space and guns and ammo, and like a lot of people just deal with that stress, I guess, by just yelling and being children. And also, like, the game has a big Twitch audience. I don't know if I want to tie this in, but like, it has a big Twitch audience. Twitch chat is kind of its own weird animal on like the biggest channels. You know, it kind of turns into a daycare at certain points. Not in our channel, of course, but yeah, there's a little bit of that. You know, just shouting memes into the void to let God know you exist or something.
Second part of Kunifu's question, which I want to answer really fast. He says, I have a choice of seeing William Pugh of Stanley Parable fame, or the dev behind Stories Untold tomorrow giving a talk. I'm assuming this is at EGX Res.
Yeah, probably.
Who would you pick, he says. I'm going William Pugh. I saw William Pugh's talk at GDC 2 years ago, and he was hysterical. So all love to Stories Untold, because James was way into that game when he was on the show last week. But yeah, William Pugh is not something I would ever want to miss.
Yeah.
Sounds like a win-win, whichever one you go see.
It's true. All right, we have time for maybe one more, but this is quite a doozy of a question. So we'll end on a quick fire with this question, which is PM Floyd 94 asks, "What's the best game you have played this year?" Which is insane because it's been 3 months and there are so many good games out already.
Really good. I'll go first because I'll just build on what I was saying a moment ago. So Astroneer, I think even above Battlegrounds. Battlegrounds is like very close second for me. But Astroneer, oh my goodness. So this came out in December. Again, it's in pre-alpha right now, early access. It is a serene space survival game. You can play it with up to 4 people, Chris. Is it 4 or 3? I don't know. In co-op.
I think 4. I think it's 4.
Either way, it's a 3 or 4 people, or you can play it single player, of course. Just one of the most elegantly designed games I played in a long time. In terms of the way it makes everything kind of compatible with each other. You build a battery, and that battery can be used in your backpack, in your vehicle, in your base. Likewise with like all the other resources in the game. It's a game about like intrinsically motivated exploration, which is just so hard to come by. If you were let down by No Man's Sky, if you like jumped on the No Man's Sky bandwagon and you were like really bummed out by that game, play Astroneer. It will delight you.
I'm going to say something probably unusual, but I would say it was the Ghost Recon Wildlands beta.
Whoa.
There was a beta period, or a beta weekend, I think, and 4 of us jumped in. Tom was one, and Tim and James and I. And I just had such a great time playing with you guys. It was super fun, even though the driving was totally wonked, and there wasn't a whole lot to do. There was only a handful of missions. That was a really fun, probably the best time I've had playing games so far this year. I think it was mostly due to the company of my fellow PC Gamer staff members. I think the next weekend we jumped back into the beta and we're like, the magic was gone. And I haven't played the full thing yet, but I think that was the most fun I had. But like I said, mostly because good company and goofy things like blowing up Tom's helicopter when he was trying to land it and pick us up.
Still mad about that.
You rascal.
Still mad about that. This is a tough choice because I've been playing so much stuff, but I would maybe go Hollow Knight. I was just insanely impressed by that game, and I still am. And yeah, I think Hollow Knight was probably up there in terms of under the radar stuff that I like incredibly enjoyed. That or Forza Horizon 3 directly after I watched The Fast and the Furious 3 and 4 back to back. One of those two. But, that's a very specific scenario right there.
Of course. That's a Vin Diesel role-playing scenario.
Dude, I watched those movies and I was just like, I want to play Forza right now. Like, damn, I want to drive some cars.
I need to put a spoiler on something quickly. Anything.
All that game needs is Street Glow, and like nitrous.
Right.
And, yeah, it'd be great. Anyway, that's all the time we have for you guys today. Thank you very, very much for coming on. We are going to be back as usual next week, Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific time, right here at twitch.tv/PCGamer. Please send us some feedback. If you liked us, tweet at us. Send me an email at tom@pcgamer.com or leave a comment at pcgamer.com/podcast. There's so many places you can get in touch, and we love hearing from you. Join us at discord.gg/PCGamer even. If we didn't get to your question, we have an Ask PC Gamer channel where you can ask us there. Until next week, though, thank you very much, and we'll see you then.